because it just, I don't know, it's awkward when you, like, somebody just gets up and kind of leaves the camera.
I don't think it's that.
Comes back, you know, but
totally,
it's life, right?
Yeah, it's that's exactly it. It's real. It's real.
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Deborah Pettit, and I have Marnie A. Lorimer with me. And she is another author, children's books. And we're going to have a little interview today. So first question is, why did you even want to write? Why did you want to write books?
I actually have two answers to that question. And told myself I was going to be very honest with these questions because I could just give an easy answer. But
Perfect.
It started with two different parts of my life. One, the first part, I was in high school. And in high school, I loved math and science. I was a big science nerd. I loved biology and chemistry and not so much social studies. But I did have a social studies class where, I finally came out of my reverie and paid attention. And the topic was war. My social studies instructor was talking about war and how war can evolve and, the conflict and what leads to it. And the answers, I guess, mostly what I caught was that it could be from social inequalities, money, resources, but also religion. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting to me. I, could never really thought of that. My family's religious. I'm a little religious. And I wanted to kind of explore that. Like religion to me at that point in my life was all, be kind to other people and show patience and guidance and kindness and all that. And I didn't really realize how, two different people have two different ideas for religion. These can make them have a conflict. And spur on violence. Exactly, yeah. And so I had an idea, that I dwelled on for many years, and I did kind of start jotting notes down and planning, and it was going to be an adult fiction novel. It was going to be called A God's War, and it was going to be based on Mars, not Earth. And I, went down this path for a little while, and then I chatted with my dad about it a few years later, into the project a little, and he said something very honest to me. My dad's a very gentle, docile, and just very but honest person. He was very inspirational. He said, Marnie, it's great you're doing this, but you don't really have an interest in war. It's not your passion. You don't have a real interest in politics and religion. You don't know enough to maybe write a book like this. And I was like, you know what, that's very fair. It's very fair. And he said, you do have an interest in environment. That's your huge passion, is nature and children. I mean, I loved children from a young age and stuff before I had my own kids. And so I thought, you know what, you're right. Maybe I should turn this around a little bit and change it into a story that actually makes me happy, something that works for me and that I would be happy and passionate to write. And so I did. I wrote a very different book. It's still similar, still has some concepts of that, how war and religion can kind of impact us here on Earth and everything. But it would feature two twin 10-year-old boys, and they have the powers to mimic and manipulate nature. And so I brought the nature environment aspect right into it. Yeah, and they are still having like a battle on Earth. It is still a very adventurous kind of story. There's mystery to it and all that too. So it's very exciting, but I did bring my passion into it, which is children and nature and falling in love with nature. So yes, that's how I went down the road with the Gardener Quest. And it did take me a long time to write it because I started, one path, another path, and eventually I led to the path that ended up in a book. And then there's the other answer, which is, I started, when my kids were young. So a few years later, I had my 3 kids. And as my first one entered the school system, he was very much like me. His teacher said, he loves science, he loves math, he's very good at these things, proficient. But he's struggling with the reading and the writing so much, right? And I thought, well, that's interesting because we read at home all the time, stories all the time. I read, an hour a day to all of them, and we still do every single night, which is great. But he loved the stories, but he wasn't interested in learning how to do the reading or the writing himself. But he would come to me with these ideas, incredible ideas about whimsical characters and outlandish stories and very odd things that, could have potentially happened, but most likely would not have happened. And he would tell me at the end of these stories that he would tell me, he was saying, his mom is a real life truth. And I was like, that's very interesting. It's like, did it really happen? He's like, it is. It's the real life truth. He's convincing me. I was like, okay, so it happened. So, and then I started taking these ideas to get him more interested in reading and writing himself. I wanted to take his ideas and turn them into full-fledged stories. And we did. I mean, his favorite thing at the time was space. And science, of course. And so I wrote a very outlandish book about a space adventure.
Oh, neat.
It's about this little boy who had trouble focusing in school, and stuff. It was really cute. And so he identified with that a lot, but it was still above his reading level. It was still a chapter book, ages 8 to 10 years old. So he wasn't quite there yet. So I wanted to write something that was a little bit younger, more in his reading level. And so I decided, well, I'm going to write something that's an early reader. It's going to be very simple illustrations, but it's going to teach tips and tricks for reading the English language or writing it too. Yeah, so he's attended a program called Multimodal Literacy, and it was fantastic. It was a great program, and I would go with him to every class, and I would be starting to learn some things too. The things that I learned was that English is actually made out of 4 languages. I did not know that at the time. And then we do have rules. All languages have rules, but the English language has so many exceptions to those rules. And so it's very struggling for a kid who's learning to do that, right? To read and write. And he's also in French immersion too, so kind of all mushed together a little bit. So he had a little bit of struggles with the English reading and writing. And so I thought, well, I'm going to start taking these rules that you're learning in this program, and I'm going to start putting them into books, and it'll reinforce. You'll be able to, digest it a little bit better and stuff. And so I did that with the bird, the fish, and the mouse. And so it's about this mouse who has trouble reading and writing and learning to spell new words. And then his 2 friends, fish and bird, were trying to teach him, how they have those skills already. And so they're trying to teach him. So I did one, yeah, thanks. So I did a couple of them, and, I'll keep going as I go. But yeah, it's been really good. So that's my answer, because I've got 2 different parts of my life that kind of both still ended up going towards writing, which is fun.
That is. So you started writing then around high school?
Yes,
That's
I did.
awesome.
Yes, it was a different book, like I said. So I never went anywhere with it. I kind of diverted.
Yeah.
Went into its own path, and now it's a different book altogether. But yeah, so I've been writing for quite a while.
Oh, that's neat. So you mentioned that you were good at science. So can you tell me how your education went that way?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was very much science nerd, as I said. I did a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. That's my degree. And yeah, I worked as a soils technician for a while, and then a fisheries technician, and now I do air quality. And so everything kind of all came together, and how that relates to my books. I would argue that my career right now and my role as an author, they don't mix and mingle so much, but I think the nature aspect is something that I bring to both of those roles. So yeah, so I think that it's like my original passion for nature kind of spurred me in this direction, not so much my education.
Okay. So Harold the Raindrop is one of your books, and I just think it's so cute. It really, um, it has the journey of the raindrop and how he travels around and stuff, but it's really sciencey. So can you explain a little bit more about this one?
Absolutely. So my son was in grade 3 when his teacher was starting the curriculum on the water cycle. So of course, my background is science. It took me very little time to write this because I already knew the whole thing. But I went into the school as a volunteer that day. She needed maybe a little bit of help or something. Anyways, I went in, and I wanted to help the class and my son learn about the water cycle. And so when I left that volunteer opportunity, I came home and I immediately wrote Harold the Raindrop. And it is about the water cycle. It goes through the whole thing. But because of my background, I also stuffed in a bunch of information on meteorology. I took a meteorology class. I think it's one of my favorite classes in school. And so I put a lot of cloud formation information into it as well. But yes, I guess, you could correct me for sure. I guess my background in nature and my background in environmental science definitely helped me write the Our Baffling Planet series. Because I have another one. It's called Sophia the Seed, and it's about the plant life cycle. And that's purely because my other son was in grade 1 and he was learning about the plant life cycle. And now they're getting into rock formation. So the next one I do will be about the geologic time scale and the rock cycle. But yes.
And I think it's so funny because you started talking about you had different jobs in science, and I'm hearing it come out in these books. And I think that's so neat.
Very perceptive.
Can you show us just one of
Sure.
your favorite page in that book?
Okay, for sure. So I started off with just introducing Harold. And so he's in, his cloud, and he goes through the whole thing. My favorite picture is this one because it teaches you all about the different clouds. As I said, meteorology is my favorite. I think most kids, though, more identify with the simpler illustrations where it's kind of showing you Harold moving through it. It's probably my least comical book, but it still does have quite a bit of funny parts in there. My kids love to watch as Harold flies down from the cloud going wee and stuff like that.
So. It is so cute. So what do you hope that readers will gain from reading your books?
I think that I would love it if readers fell back in love with nature. Quite honestly, nature is my passion for sure. Getting out into the world. My son the other day, he even asked me, Mom, are trees and humans still friends? And I was kind of heartbroken when he asked me that. And I said, of course we are. Of course we're still friends. We still need to take care of nature and be there for it and work with it, and sometimes just leave it alone and let it thrive on its own. And so there's quite a few books that I've written that have nothing to do with nature. They're just comical, whimsical, just helping kids fall in love with reading because I wanted that for my son. He loves the stories, but getting him to read, it was more that. So I have quite a few books that don't pertain to nature at all. But if I wanted to, ever be remembered for something, it would be my books on nature and how I kind of want kids to just fall back in love with the forest.
That's your legacy then.
Yeah,
oh, that's neat. So what was the most unexpected challenge that you encountered while writing your Gardener Quests?
Yeah, my young adult novel for sure. Absolutely. That is probably the book I had the most difficult time writing. And I think it's because, well, one, I didn't go to school to be a writer. I went to school for science. And so I never learned how to write even, it came to me as a bit of a struggle at first. And probably that's why it took me so long to finish the project. But I think it's because I deviated so much. I'm very used to writing scientific papers, research papers, something that's concise, something that's factual. You just, you kind of just blow through these steps in order to get the point of, what you're trying to say across, your theory or such. With writing a fiction book, it was difficult for me because I had never experienced that before. And the thing was letting your pen go where it took you. I didn't know how to rein in my pen, honestly. I had written a plot. I had written this, this beautiful summary of what was going to happen. But then I kept deviating from it and going this way and that way and navigating back and forth. I think it ended up being very well done because my editing skills actually just came into play with that. But me just coming from one idea to the next and not sure if it was going to make it through. The way I corrected myself in the end, honestly, was that I just have a very strong editing skills because in science, that's what you're doing, right? And I have been doing it for 10 years in my career. And so making my way back through the editing process and making sure that it was logical and made sense and didn't deviate into different worlds. That was more where my saving grace was, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Can you describe a memorable experience with a reader that you've had, either you've met face to face, or maybe through Amazon? Sometimes the comments through Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really sell a lot of books through Amazon. All my books
Okay.
are on Amazon, but they don't sell on Amazon, and I think that's because children want to see the book first.
Mm.
They want to have an experience of going through and make sure they're going to like it, and parents too. They want they want to see what their kids are reading, right? And I think that's so important, so important. So I actually sell my books through farmers markets. I love farmers markets. I love being out in nature. So I knew I was eventually going to open a farmers market booth when I was younger. My mom and I had this great idea.
Oh, that's awesome.
We never knew what we were going to open it for. We thought, oh, we'll grow flowers or something, but no, it ended up being books, which was funny. So I sell my books through farmers markets, and so I get to meet all my readers face to face, which is
Mm.
fantastic. Um, the most memorable one is this little girl who absolutely devours my books. She loves them. She's got every copy for sure, and she her favorite one was actually Harold the Raindrop, which was interesting to me. She loved this one in particular, and I thought how interesting because she told me that when she got my book and she had read the whole thing, she went to the library and picked out another book about the water cycle. And I guess she was using my book to correct the facts in that book. I guess it must have been an old copy before we knew certain things or something. But yeah, I thought that was so funny that she was using it to correct another book, or even her mom. She told him, her mom told me too. I was like, that's so funny. So it was good for her. She's a science nerd like me, maybe.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And the only other one I've got that, well, I got lots, but the only one I thought of was that I had a girl who was, like my son, a reluctant reader at first, and she picked up on the bird, the fish, and the mouse books.
Mm.
And I remember she took the first one home, she read it, and then the next summer she came back and she saw that I had two other copies, next ones in the series, and she started like petting them on the shelf. They were there, and she's like started petting them, and then she grabbed them and she ran away, and I'm like, oh, she can keep them, that's all good. She loves them that much. Her mom brought her back and she said, oh, you gotta pay with your allowance. I said, no, just keep those books because
Aw.
like obviously I want kids to just learn to read and enjoy reading. So it made my heart soar. So
Right.
yeah.
Those stories make all the hard work and the
Yes.
tears worth
Oh,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there a character in one of your books that you either um, just fell in love with or that you emulate?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Alder in the Gardener Quest. I had so much fun with Alder. He is quiet. He's studious. He's that kid that I think everybody can relate to on a certain level because it's that the uncertainty. I think he's that kid that everybody like eventually kind of shy away, and you're just uncertain, and you're uh, that's him. His brother Henry is the confident one. He's the boisterous one. He's the one. He's spirited. He's adventurous, and I think everybody kind of has that moment in their lives where they're very confident and they can do anything. But then I think that we all kind of shy back to the Alder situation where we're kind of uncertain and we're kind of quiet. And I think that little boy lives in all of us.
Oh, I love that. How do you balance writing with work and family?
That's a very good question, and I don't know if I have a great answer, but um, time is fickle. I just think that I, I enjoy it so much that I make time for it, and uh, maybe everybody's different, but the way I do it is, without an alarm clock, I'll just wake up because I'm so excited
Whoa.
to write. And when I was writing the Gardener Quest, I set myself this internal deadline. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get it done by Christmas because I have a Christmas market and I want it to be available to the kids because I told them all it was gonna be available. And then I would get up at 4:30 in the morning and I would write it and edit it and write and edit. And then at 7 o'clock I'd take my kids, we'd get ready and we'd go to school, and I come back home and I work for 8 hours in my job, and then at the end of the day, we'd do supper and bedtime and bath time routines and stuff, and then I would be so excited. I'd be exhausted, but I would be so excited still to continue with my books. I love them so much. It's this massive hobby in my life that's just become a part of me that I would still have miraculously inspiration to have energy to
Mm.
keep working. And so that's when I would do the illustrations at that point because my mind would be mush. But I think I would, start in the early morning when I have all the thinking process ready to go, write the book, and then at the end we'll work on the illustrations.
So you'd get up super early, start writing, and then you'd go to work,
Yeah.
and then take care of your family, and then
Yeah.
at night you would go get
Yeah.
back to writing.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. I honestly, I think part-time writers and part-time authors, they must do the same thing as me. It might just, maybe it's
Yeah.
more weekends or something. But for me, I think I think that's my only limiting factor is this time thing. So, yeah.
It's amazing because um I tried to get up early and write, and I just like my eyes are, it's all foggy. I can't even see.
Yeah.
and then and then I'm my brain is mush at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the day it is too.
Yeah.
And so I'm a type of writer. It's the middle of the day, like 2 o'clock
Yeah.
is pretty good for me.
Well, yeah.
But I can do that, and a lot of people they can't. And so I hear stories of people who have full-time jobs and they write on the side, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, I have to stay up till midnight to write." And I'm just like, I don't know how you guys do it. It's amazing. You guys are awesome.
I don't know either, but I think it's just if you love it, right? It's a passion of yours. You'll make time. Like I cut out TV.
Yeah.
So many times, before I was writing, actively writing. I binge watched TV, a TV show or series or something. I think where did the time go? And then, I started writing. I actually have more fun writing than I do reading, and I have much more fun writing than I do watching television.
Me too.
So yeah, if you like it, you're gonna find the time. You'll make time somewhere.
So, what's the most? I mean, we have talked a lot about rewards, but what's the most rewarding part of the writing process for you?
I think it's talking about it, honestly, and I kind of have examples why. When I am figuring out a problem or you know diving into the next idea or something like that, I get very excited. I get very inspirational. I start to physically like bounce up and down on my feet as I'm trying to explain it to the person who's listening. So often it's my husband or my dad or somebody, and I'll just be running through these ideas and chatting about it, and it helps me with, problem solving and writing and stuff. And I just get so excited that I think it's just, yeah, I think it's just, having a chance to talk about it or even think about it, sometimes. So I mentioned I was at these farmers market booths and stuff. Sometimes I'll be on my way to somewhere completely different, the grocery store, work or something, but I'll be on the road that goes to the farmers market. And I'll be so excited just because I'm on that road, you're thinking about the book and the next idea.
I
and
love
stuff.
that.
So,
I love that. Now that you're an author, does your dad come alongside and he's excited for you for it? That's so fantastic.
Yes. I think maybe I've chatted my dad and my husband's ears off, maybe, but they still ask me questions about it. And my dad actually will still help me. He just recently retired, and he still helps me edit my Gardener Quest series.
Oh, nice.
He used to work at a newspaper for many years.
Oh,
he was
wow.
a newspaper editor for many years, so I trust him.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. But now that I'm more, I guess more people interested in my books, I can even reach out to other people now and start passing ideas through them. And actually, it's more often than not other authors that will give me constructive feedback and information and how I can make things better. It's been fantastic.
Let's shift over to another topic, writing dialogue. For me, I will say my first book had hardly any dialogue in it. And after I wrote it out, and then somebody said, you should rewrite this book. And I was like, you know what? She's an author. I'm going to respect her. I will totally do that. I started realizing, oh, I have no dialogue in here. I should get some dialogue. So it's kind of almost near and dear to my heart now. So
Yeah.
how do you feel about writing dialogue? Do you
Well,
struggle like I did, or?
that's a really good question because I think maybe I kind of started out the same way. I wrote a chapter, my very first chapter of the Gardener class, where it was the twins' dad. Before the twins, were even born yet, he had gone on a fishing trip. And while he was on his fishing trip, it was very adventurous, and he was noticing very odd things happening while he was on his trip. And there was there was dialogue, but it was very minimal. And I actually passed that by my dad. And he said to me, Marnie, there's not a lot of dialogue. Kids like dialogue. Maybe put some more information in there and keep them engaged and stuff. And I thought, oh yeah, that's a great idea. But nobody was with Paul at the time, Paul's character. Nobody's with Paul. How can I make him have dialogue? And so this very interesting character actually was birthed out of this dialogue because I had him talking to his truck, his dashboard, the trees around him, the fish he was catching.
Oh, wow,
He's
funny.
named his fishing rod because he had nobody else to talk to. So he talks to inanimate objects, and that is his
I love it.
personality.
He's totally me.
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Me too. So it's awesome. But how I deal with difficult dialogue, I would say, is heavy, like a very heavy scene that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I like to stop and think about it because there's there's these books that I love that the quote on the back of them says the characters seem so intensely real, and I wanted that to come through in my books too because that was really important to me. So I take a break and I go for a walk out in nature. It's hugely inspirational for me, and I try and play through the scene as if it was happening in front of me. And so the second chapter of that book is very much is super dialogue heavy because I wanted the reader to feel like they were actually there. And so I feel like I was Alder watching his brother turn into water for the first time and seeing his body and everything out of him form out of the water and shape himself out of this water. And I thought, I really want this to look real, so I'm going to work on it so much so. And I think that just helping myself look at it as if I was actually in the ocean watching this happening and writing it from that perspective would help me work on that. Yeah.
That's neat. What was the most challenging scene for you to do in the gardener class?
Actually, it's that scene that I was just chatting with you about. It's that being formed out of water. I think it was just because it was my first real big scene. It happens in the second chapter. The rest of it, I kind of used piggyback off of that and just did exactly what I did that time, which was take a break, go for a walk, be inspired by the outdoors, and that's kind of how I did that. But I should point out that I rewrote that first chapter where Paul is in going for his fishing trip and that there's no dialogue. I rewrote that first chapter 10 times before I had it right. And I think that was probably the hardest part for me because I was just learning how to write fiction. Yeah. And so I didn't want this book to be like my guinea pig. So in fact, I just made the first chapter my guinea pig and I rewrote that many times to nail it. So
that's so good. Yeah. My first book I rewrote. I edited so many times, countless times. Yeah. It got up there like a lot, way more than 10 times, way more. But we want the best for our reader, right?
Yes.
And because of that, we're bringing our best. So if you could offer one piece of advice for aspiring writers, I think there are a few on this channel. So what would you say to them?
Absolutely. I would say write what makes you happy. Like I said before, I started writing a book that I thought was a great idea, but it wasn't my passion. It wasn't what I think that I was brought on this earth to do. So I think that writing about nature instead of focusing on war and religion and such, I think that I've made myself happy as well. I think that you sometimes, myself included, you pick up a hobby like knitting or something like that and you just find it's just not the thing for you or something, you put it down. I think that would have happened to me if I had continued down that other path because I wasn't really inspired by it. But nature is definitely something that I, I've carried throughout my infancy into my adult career and everything. So I think that writing something that makes you happy is how you're going to be the best writer that you could be.
So you did mention one book that you were going to be doing in the spring, but can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you're currently working
I'm
on?
working on I work on probably 3 or 4 books at a time, and I don't know why. I think it's just how my brain works. So I'm going to work on this year. I've got a kind of set agenda. I'm going to do Cody the Rock because I've just had so much interest in that one. I'll do another one for the Bird, the Fish, and the Mouse series. I have another just great idea for it. They're going to do the Buzz Off Miss Pill rule on that one. And then I'm also working on the second Gardener Quest. So the Gardener Quest
Nice.
and the Appetite Mineral. But I do have a one-off book that I'm just finishing up right now. I'm working on the illustrations for it. It's called Super Fork, and it's
So cute.
it's a story about this superhero fork and his sidekick Spoon, and they are exploring healthy eating habits, but very subtly. So yeah, it'll be a very comical book. I think it'll be my closest book to a comic book. It won't be
Oh,
like
cute.
formatted like a comic book, but the illustrations are trying to make them a little bit more early Spider-Man with very like vibrant colors and such.
Oh,
Yeah.
fun. So, with all of these, you've done all of the illustrations as well?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Because you said at night you would be working on the illustrations.
Yes.
So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
I started out very simple, and I think I've just gotten better. So I'm getting more creative too. So it's been a lot of fun. My kids, they don't want to read the book until the illustrations are ready. They want it to go hand in hand.
Yes,
They
kids
don't
are
want,
so much like
yeah,
that.
absolutely. So it's good
Oh,
because
neat.
they kind of force me to go forward. They're like, oh, I've just finished a book. You guys want to hear it? And they're like, not until the illustrations are ready. We want to see that. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll work on this too. Yeah. So it's just
That's
good
so funny.
inspiration. Get it
Nice.
done. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming,
Ooh.
and I hope you guys enjoyed the time. And if you go on Amazon, you can get Harold the Raindrop and some of her other books. So it's Marnie A. Lorimer. All right. Thank you. See you
Thanks,
later.
Becca.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.